Hello, an extremely warm welcome back to the channel, and when I say warm, it's roasting. About 28 degrees out here as I film this, and Dylan Dog, the Irish Terrier, has tucked himself away on some of Mrs. Snoozer's plants, so I don't know how well that's going to go when she gets home, but I've been emptying my old dumper truck of well-rotted horse muck, and that's been going on some of the beds, so I have been doing a little bit of work. Now, my next job is probably not necessary because the grass is just so absolutely roasted by the sun, which means no need to get the mower out. So, I've got a couple of hours to myself, and it's time to show you what I'm going to be getting on with in this short video today. So let me get to the table. Now, I've laid a couple of items out. The lighting here is a bit rubbish, so I'm going to take these inside to just show you in a minute, but I've got a catalogue from Bassett-Lowke Limited, and just here, look at that. That is a 3/4 inch scale live steam Burrell type traction engine. That's been in hibernation for many decades. Well, today we're going to see if we can steam it up and have a bit of fun with it out on the slabs. So I hope you stick with me to see how I go about it and what the end result is. But let's move in the house and firstly take a look at the catalogue, a quick look, and then we'll have a look at the traction engine itself. Okay, well, I've moved inside for a minute because I've got some lighting in here, and it's going to make it better to give the model a quick look over and to just have a very small examination of this catalogue. Model Railway and Engineering catalogue. What a great thing. You could spend ages. Well, indeed I have. I've been through this cover to cover in the past, and we will take a better look at it in another video, I think, because there's so much to see. Sadly, it's starting to fall apart, but there we have the London branch of Bassett-Lowke. Fantastic picture there of the shop front 112 High Holborn WC1. Lots of maps. No sat-nav in those days. Bassett-Lowke in Manchester, 28 Corporation Street, and of course Northampton, head office, works and sale room, 18 to 25 Kingswell Street. And indeed, just before the closure, I was taken around there. And what memories. I do still have some memories. Amazing considering how young I was. So here we are. 3/4 inch scale Burrell type traction engine. And I hardly dare show you, even in the old days, how much a finished one was, but I will. £136. Absolutely amazing for the late 1950s, early 1960s. You could imagine they're not going to be selling these by the dozen, are they? Well, I think quite a few were produced, but a lot of people chose a different way of obtaining them, because you could buy them as a kit of parts, so that brought the cost down a bit. And if you were feeling really brave, you could buy rough castings and machine and mill them all yourself, and even make your own boiler. You could produce one of these just from a kit of castings, so that really helped with the cost, and I'm sure it would have been absolutely great fun. But this is the item we're going to be trying to get going today. There's a few specifications, just basic specifications. Water tube type boiler, spirit fired, valve motion, modified Stephenson's, cylinder bore. I think that is 1/2 inch by 3/4 inch stroke, so a little bit like my very old Land Rover engine. Quite a long stroke, but quite a bit of torque, I would imagine. So yes, we'll look it over in a second. I've just marked another page. Let me try and get to it, because I just found this tucked away with the, let me reach, here it is, and the engine has actually been piped for the use of this. Now this is a force lever pump, and you could indeed inject water into the boiler with this while it was under steam. Now I'm not going to be using that today, just going to fill it in the normal fashion. But let's move the catalogue out of the way and see if I can give you a quick look over it. So there is the model on this wooden tray, and at the back, just under the cold storage area, that pipe, that is where, if you wanted, you could put on this pump. So that would go onto the pipe. You've got a pump there, an inlet for water, and you could, using the lever, inject water into the boiler, but we don't need to do that today. I'm going to just fill it up with deionised water. So let's have a look at some of the controls. Well, right at the back we've got the spirit container. The methylated spirit is controlled by a tap, and you can see off and on. In fact, a little drop of spirit just ran out of the overflow there, because I have checked it for correct operation, so there's no leaks. So the spirit drops into the burner, and the more you allow into the burner, the harder it burns. So let's take a look at the driver controls. So there's a sight glass there. Now, maybe if I try and get this just right, there is some water in it. If I tip it, or indeed if I tip it this other way, it's not very clear, but the water level does move. It's just away from that top nut at the moment, so I've got a nice bit of water in there. So we've got a handbrake, which operates a lever onto this back wheel, so the wheel is free. I can put the brake on, and now we're locked up nicely. So what else have we got in the cab? Well, we've got a reverser, so that's forward and reverse. We've got a steam pressure gauge, the all-important regulator, the sight glass down there. This is a drain cock, and then we get to the steering wheel, which is, if I spin the loco round, the engine round, you can see there's some lovely cut gears there. So for the steering we've got a worm, and as I operate it you can see it pulling the chain in, which steers it to the right, and then I'll turn it the other way and steers it to the left. Now you're not going to get any fast manoeuvres out of this. So we've also got a gear lever here. I can remove the pin and move the gear in and out of mesh. Let's just, there we go. So that's in mesh and out of mesh. So I can use it as a stationary engine, and you can see it's had lots of use, lots of black oil sprayed out on the flywheel there, but lovely smooth motion. I have lubricated this. So we've got a 3/4 inch stroke and a 1/2 inch main cylinder here, double acting. So we'll come back to the other side and a close look at the crankshaft in a minute. So let's just have a look at the front. And in here you can see the inner boiler. You can just see that it isn't right to the edge, a bit like the Stephenson's rocket we ran the other day, and some exhaust pipe work in there. So we'll just shut that. Quite firm. So let's spin it round now. Lots of dark blackening on the boiler from previous firings. A lovely oiler on the side. Now the filler and safety valve are all in one. I have wet tested this boiler under pressure, and I'm happy to fire it up, and the safety valve has been comprehensively checked and is fine. So take a look at the motion now. If I just, you can see as I flick it over, you can see the valve work. Now if I operate the reverser, hopefully you can see how it changes the position. I just need to move that with what, there we go, raise it up, and it changes the position and the action of the valve. So that's, I can't tell you whether it's forward or reverse, but that's one direction. And then if I just move this lever in the cab, that drops down, and there we have the second. So let's take a look at this really nice crankshaft. Now you can see that I'm going to use this pen as a pointer. There's oil holes in virtually all the parts of the crankshaft, and everything is put together with nuts and bolts and screws, and it's just a beautifully made item. And you can see there quite plainly that the gear is out of mesh, and there's a little, let me try and show you this, there's a little pin which you can lock, and will it go in? There we go. You can lock that lever so it doesn't go into gear. There's a couple of, you can run a flat belt on the outer edge of this, or a smaller belt in this pulley. Now, some of you are perhaps wondering, what's the operating pressure of this? Well, I don't know whether you can see the gauge here plainly, but it's where are we? Pound per square inch, and it does read above, it goes up to over 100, but the safety valve should blow off at just over 60 pounds per square inch, and we're not going to get up to that today. We're going to be running it very gently. So everything is oiled, and we'll just take a slightly better look. I'll just stand up. Sorry about, I just thought it would be good fun to do this handheld so you could get an idea of the model, and I'll just try and turn it around. Look at this, there's a bit of play in the steering here. I suppose the chain could be tightened, but I don't think they worried about things like that when they drove these. It's a constant battle to keep pointing in the right direction, I'm sure. But anyway, we're going to have a bit of great fun with this now. We're going to get it outside and light it up. If you have anything like this, really important, if you haven't got the tools or the knowledge to check it yourself, to get it checked properly, hot water, steam and fire, you don't need me to tell you that if they're not looked after safely, bad things can happen. Right, well, I hope you've enjoyed looking over this magnificent thing. It's a great item from, like I say, the 1950s, very early 1960s. I think it's time to get some fire in its belly and see what it can do. So let's get back outside into the bright sunshine. Okay, well, I'm outside. The burner's lit. It's all very quiet, but there's a little bit of hissing and smoking, and I am just noticing we might have got around 20 psi on the gauge. So I think that's going to be enough to get this running. So the regulator is now open. And look at that. Let's just slow that down a bit. Some very nice slow running available. Now, just while this runs away, I want to apologise for the sound quality in the previous segment. I hadn't done any parts of my videos before in that room. It has a very high ceiling and it was a bit echoey, so I did listen back to it. I hope you heard what I said. Right, well, we've got 20 psi on the gauge. Just going to step back a bit now. So I'm going to attempt to slow it down, and I think we're going to put it into gear. Now, no synchro mesh on here. Okay, in we go. So we've got pressure. That's forward. I'm letting off the brake. Open the regulator and give it a flick. Now, it's obvious to me that this is geared so that you need to have the flywheel rotating in the opposite direction to the travel of the engine. Right, let's try again. I think Here we go. Lots of imperfections in these slabs. Hopefully now you can see this running on the camera. It's crossing the damages to the pointing around the slabs quite well. And look at it run. Let me see how near I can get for you. Pressure gauge is slightly increasing now. And what a beautiful smooth runner this is. So let's just see if I can take it out of gear for you. And that's regulator's very fine. And let's just see if I can zoom in on the pressure gauge. As I said before, I'm not going to be running it at full pressure. That's just a shade around 20 psi. And that's plenty. Let me just switch that off a minute. I seem to have lost my locking pin. Right. Let's ease it back into gear now. And we'll go around again. Just need to, I'm just going to change hands on my camera to try and fish out this little pin. Might need a tool in a minute. Whoops. Right, let me just get something. Just need to, don't want the chain to get into the gears. Is that that's the trouble when your fingers are a bit too fat. It's just impossible to sometimes get these tiny details. Okay, that's locked in gear now. Pressure gauge is reading quite nicely. I'm just going to manhandle it slightly and see whether I can bring it just a little way into the shade, so I can perhaps increase the turning circle. So let's just do that. Open the regulator. Making some great noises over my slabs, which are now sadly a little loose. I'll just tighten that steering up a fraction. Sorry about my shadow in front of it there. Comes into the bright sunshine. Right, I need to slow this down a bit now because it'd be nice to see the motion as slow as possible. I need to become a little more skilled on the regulator. That's better. Just trundling along, so very much like the real thing. This is a great model to have fun with. You can hear me shuffling around on the slabs. Let's take a look at that valve gear. Some lovely smells coming from this machine. Well, I think that's gone better than I thought it would, so I hope you've enjoyed seeing it, but I think I'm coming to the end of the video now today. I'm just going to let it trundle around now in its little circle a bit more and leave you to watch it just for another couple of movements. We do actually have a little bit more pressure now, but it's at very safe limits. Lovely, no leaks from the boiler or the sight glass, or when I've steamed up some of these older items made by Bassett-Lowke or Stewart. In the past we can get leaks around glands or sight glasses or valves, but this is just performing beautifully. The only thing it needs is a good supply of clean water, methylated spirits and good quality steam oil, and there's no reason why. Hopefully someone will be enjoying this in another 60 or 70 years time. Well, I hope you all get to enjoy another lovely time in the sun. Temperatures are set to climb now again for a few days, so take care, keep hydrated, and until the next video, I'll say goodbye.